Good morning. Welcome
Good
to
morning,
Reignite
Dr. Barr.
with Dr. Barb. I am your host, and today we are so excited because I have a special guest here today with me, Yolanda Winston, and we are going to be discussing military spouses in transition. So we will get started after this quick break. Yes, welcome back, everyone. Like I said, I'm so excited to have my guest on here today, and I am going to allow her to tell you a little bit about herself. So, welcome, Yolanda. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Barr, for having me on the show. I truly appreciate the invitation. So, as you mentioned, I am Yolanda Yo-Win Winston. I am born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. I came here to Huntsville in 2019. My husband, I'm married of 23 years. My husband is former military, so we've traveled around quite a bit, and he is now a government contractor. So that's what brought us to Huntsville. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I'm also a licensed cosmetologist, so you'll see me, with all kind of styles and things going on. But my passion is real estate.
Nice. Thank you so much. Goodness. You've got quite a bit that you're going on, and I'm so excited. So are you like adjusting to Huntsville? Do you like Huntsville?
I love Huntsville. Huntsville is an amazing place to live. We came here from Germany, and if you know about Huntsville, you know that Germany has an awesome history rooted in German culture. The station, the space station, and all that, they had a lot to do with the development of Huntsville. So when we came here and we went to different parts of Huntsville, it really, really, really reminded us of being in Germany. So I love Huntsville. I mean, I came right before the pandemic, so the transition has been different compared to when we moved other places, but I've definitely adjusted well here.
Well, that's great. I know when I moved here, goodness, the growth here is amazing. There was not even any of this stuff when I moved here, and I was just so rooted in Texas. I wanted to stay in Texas because I was like, oh my goodness, I just miss Texas. But now that I'm here and all this growth, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love it. It's so beautiful
Yes.
here and green. So anyway, tell me.
Very green.
It is very
That's one
green.
of the big things about
Allergies.
those mountains and trees and deer and rabbits and all this wildlife.
That's true. I mean, and it's like when I moved here, because of all the greenery, there's like it really affected my allergies. So I'm sure a lot of people that is not used to Alabama, they probably had the same problems.
Yes, I suffer from the same situation. Mine actually kicked off in Germany.
Oh
And
goodness.
it followed me here. So I was hoping I would be able to get away from the daily allergy medicines. I haven't yet. I might actually switch to the shot because my allergies do bother me so much. I cannot even drive with the
Yeah.
windows down. I have to ride with the AC, regardless of the time of year or the weather. I have a sunroof, so sometimes I want to let the sunroof down and
Yes, still
get
let
some
it down.
sunshine. Yeah, but my allergies will not let me live my best life.
Oh my goodness. Well, you may have to take care of that because we got things to do. We got places to go. So yes,
I
gotta
know
go.
we cannot let that slow us down.
So tell me how you met your spouse.
Well, I met my spouse. We actually grew up on the same street. Well, let me not say we grew up, but we lived on the same street. So when I was about 9 or 10, I was sitting on the porch like we always did, just hanging out. And my husband comes riding his bike down the street, and we've been living in the neighborhood for a while. So it was like, who's that?
Oh,
Yeah, and that's pretty much how it started and how it continued. So we lived about 8 to 10 blocks apart, maybe about a half a mile apart. But yeah, we
wow.
lived in one of those neighborhoods where the kids just traveled up and down the street, and we just played all the time. So we met in the neighborhood.
Oh, I didn't even know that. That's exciting to know that you've known your husband that long. My
Oh my
goodness.
goodness, it's not even funny. I was like, as soon as I have to remind myself, like, oh wow, I've known my husband since I was like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, fifth grade, about. And the funny thing about it is my parents were also childhood sweethearts. His parents grew up in the same neighborhood. So it just seems to be something that is in our jeans, and now my
Abraham.
daughter's a little worried that she hasn't met the one yet.
Oh my
And,
goodness. Yeah, so hopefully it'll continue since that's what,
yes, well,
going
it
on.
doesn't
But
have to. That's what I try to encourage her is, I didn't plan for that to happen. Actually, my mother kind of discouraged me from getting deeply involved with the first romance because there's so much that you don't know and that you have to learn, and you don't want to make those mistakes with someone that could be, your forever, your soulmate.
that's
So
true.
yeah, so even though we knew each other for a long time, we didn't date. We did not date. We did not date.
Really?
Okay, first of all, my husband is 4 years older than me.
Oh my
And
goodness, that's so
yeah,
much
that was a
older.
no-no in
Yeah.
my house. I was only allowed to date 2 years senior. So my husband and I did not date until I was 18. And we pretty much went from hey to let's get married.
Now, did he go into, I guess he is, I'm assuming he went into the military while you guys were dating?
The military is kind of the catalyst of the marriage. So we had started, kind of courting, I guess you could say, but it was long distance.
Mm-hmm.
And he joined the military. And I remember he came to my house. He called me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I remember I was doing laundry. I
Oh
was
my
doing
goodness,
laundry, so
yes,
of course I was
that's
in
what
my
you do.
laundry clothes. And he goes, "I need you to come outside for a minute." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." There was nothing strange about him just kind of coming around the neighborhood saying, "Hey, come outside." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I come outside, of course, giving the disclaimer, I'm in my laundry clothes. And so he goes, "Okay, take a ride with me." He's looking all nice and fresh. I remember he had on a sweater, some corduroys, and some snakeskin boots. And he goes, I'm leaving St. Louis. And I'm like, "Okay, you always leave St. Louis. That's not anything new."
Right.
You always say, "I'm not coming back this time." Well, you always say you're not coming
It's
back.
like you're coming back. Yeah.
So that's nothing new. And then he goes, "No, for real, I'm not coming back this time. I'm joining the military." And I just felt my heart thump, thump, thump. And I just knew, I was like, he's not coming back this time. I knew I just had a feeling that he's not coming back this time. And I feel like it was at that point that I started to take more consideration into us having a serious relationship, if it could be in the same city, in the same state.
Right.
Yeah, so we started courting and all that while he was in basic training. We were courting, we were going through all this, which was still long distance, still difficult. This was back when we had voice boxes.
Oh my God, yes.
I remember leaving him messages in his voice box, and he would get back with me weeks later, and then I would speak.
Yeah, I know. You'd be like, okay, giving him a hard
I would
time.
I would let him have it. And then one day it just happened. He asked me, and I'm like, "Sure," like, yeah. When I think back on it, I'm like, how spontaneous was that? Like we were pretty young and spontaneous. We were just like, "Okay, let's get married." Okay, fine. And then we eloped.
Yeah, oh my gosh, and it's like that is probably because you guys have known each other for a while, and you'd kind of know when that happens, because that's kind of like how it was with me. It's like the long distance. My now ex-husband, unfortunately, he actually, that's how we were dating like 3 years before that, and then he went into the military, or the basic and military, and then of course I was like, well, I guess this is it, and he left, and he was like, no, I'm gonna we're gonna get married. And I was just like, yeah, whatever. Once he's gone, that's it. And we dated and did the long distance relationship, but not long, so
Yeah.
So it is something to be said, because that long distance relationship is not it. So
No, it's not.
we're like, we got to make this work. We either got to make a choice here.
Exactly. And my husband, he actually, yeah. So another part of why everything was sped up exponentially is he had got deployed. He was getting deployed to Afghanistan, somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Of course, this was the late 90s.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the dilemma, or the thing that we were up against was, okay, well, we can stay engaged while you're deployed, or we can get married and get married benefits, and we can get all these benefits. And then when you come back, we'll have have enough money to, really be able to afford to get us a place, furnish it, so forth and so on. And that's exactly what we did. We got married sooner than we had planned. We planned on having a wedding. I went to the wedding shows and all things like that, but everything got sped up because of that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And that's the joy of the military, because you have to be flexible. You sometimes you just don't have time. And it's just like when deployments happen, it's like, okay, now we have to go like today, and so there, just as a military spouse, you just have to adapt and adjust so often. So that brings me to my next question. What has been like the highlights, you would say, or should I say the highlights and maybe some of even the struggles of being a military spouse?
So just to be clear, my husband is no longer, I want everybody that's watching this to remember that my husband is now a civilian. He's now a DOD government employee. So for me, the struggle, and I tell everyone I was not a good military spouse, because so some of the joys was the traveling. We had the opportunity to live in Germany while he was in the military, and then as a government contractor, we had the opportunity to live in Hawaii, and then we had another opportunity to go back to Germany. So the amount of travel and the amount of the world that we've seen because of the military, we probably would not have. I tell people I had a 4-year honeymoon. We got married and we were literally in Germany within the next 3 or 4 months. So I actually, my 21st birthday was in Germany.
What? That's amazing. Yeah, that's a great time.
Yeah. So I love that. I love the people that I met. I have so many friends. I don't think I would have been around such a diverse group of people had it not been for the military. So I really am thankful for that. I've gained a lot of friends and extended family because of the military. I was also another highlight of being a military spouse was the ability or the access to funds for education and things of that nature. So while I was in Germany, I ended up getting a job at DFAS, Defense Finance Accounting Services. And they had a scholarship program where they would pay for you to take business related and accounting classes. So of course, that's how I got started with my business degree. So you do have access to funds and scholarships and resources that, you would not have known about or have access to. So that leads me into, now we qualify for the VA benefits, so that's amazing. I love that. Some of the struggles and why I say I was not a good military spouse is I felt like the military controlled our lives. As we mentioned, once they decide what they want to do with the soldier, then that impacts the soldier and the family. And now things have to get thrown into place and sped up where it normally would not have. So being, I won't say a bit of a control freak, being a control freak, that was a big deal for me. So when we got married, we were in Fort Stewart. We went to Fort Stewart. No, I turned 21 in Fort Stewart. So we were in Fort Stewart maybe the end of May. By October, we were in Germany.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, I remember calling. Now my dad is a Marine, but he was in the service before I was born. And I remember calling my dad crying, like, because my husband had to choose either go to Japan unaccompanied, do an unaccompanied tour to Japan, or do an accompanying tour to Germany.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer. It's like,
that was a no-brainer. Why would I allow you to go to Japan without me? We can go to Germany.
Right, we can go to Germany and be together. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember calling my dad crying. I don't really know why I was crying. I was just crying because I was just like, what? Going to Germany was exciting. But everything that goes along with it is like, what? I never lived. I still lived in my parents' house.
Yeah.
When I got married.
I did too. Yeah.
So to go from living in your parents' house to moving across the world with this man.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, you really had it, because it's like, at least for me, I moved from home to Louisiana. but you are like all the way on the other side of the world.
Yes, yes. So if he turned out to be a crazy creep,
You had no family. He's like, where am I going? What am I gonna do? Yeah.
it could have been bad. It could have been really, really bad. And then that goes into a situation. My grandmother, my grandmother had some hesitations, and so her concerns kind of started rubbing off on me. So I started to get concerned about the things that she was concerned about, which obviously at this point were not of a concern. So that was the thing. So also I like to talk. I'm very opinionated. I'm very candid. So I would constantly hear from my husband, "You're gonna get me in trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble. You can't say that. That
Yeah.
might be somebody's important."
Because they're just, yeah. It's and it was like we went from being enlisted to the officer side. So, usually most of the aviators' wives, or just in general the officers, but mainly especially the aviators' wives, you have to be a different kind of breed, if you will, to be. But I think a lot of them also were very opinionated and very strong. So it was really hard sometimes to follow along with the whole yes sir, when the whole following along with the soldier advocacy. You gotta, okay, you can't act this way, you can't say that, you have to, because we are still our individual selves, a person. So it's
Yeah.
really hard. A lot of times you lose that, as you were saying, if the military decides, okay, tomorrow you're going to the next, whatever state, a couple states over, then that's it. You really don't have a say, like, no, I don't want to go. We need to stay back here. Whether you're pregnant, the baby's about to come, whatever it is, he's just going to have to go on without you. And,
Exactly.
so that
Exactly.
is
There
a
was
struggle of
very, yeah, I feel like there was very little concern about family cohesiveness. I'm hoping that those things have changed now that, PTSD is very real, and they are
Yes.
really, paying attention to those things. So I hope that some of those things are being addressed, because then, we get into the divorce rate of the military,
A
and
lot.
yeah, and the domestic abuse.
Yes.
The
Which
amount
people
of
don't talk about, and there is that side of that, and people don't discuss that, but it needs to be discussed because
exactly.
it is a real part of military life.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that those were the things that were very difficult for me, is feeling like I had to give up my identity to
Yeah.
a certain extent. Constantly starting over. It felt like I was, no matter how awesome it was to move to this great place, it
Right.
still felt like starting over.
Yeah. And that was the challenge every single time, because every single time we would get to the next duty station, start to build relationships, start to get that job, get that job where they're trying to promote you up. Then it's like, well, we got orders, and you're like, oh my goodness, not again. So it made
Exactly.
it hard for you to build a career, maintain a job, because you're constantly moving. So a lot of times spouses, unless when they married, they already had, like, say, their background or their education or their career. The ones that did not, it was hard because you move. And then of course they were like, well, how long are you going to be here? And then that was the whole other thing. It's like, well, you'd have to lie. I'm going to be here. We're going to be here until whatever, knowing that good and doggone well, you're probably going to be there a year, whatever it is. Because otherwise you wouldn't have a job.
Yes, I ran into that, and I found that to be very common. The employment situation is a little different overseas.
Yes.
It has its own unique challenges, but I agree, being associated with the military, employers shy away from you because they know that you won't be there for
Yeah.
long, and then they just don't want to deal with that. So some of the things that I had to learn to do is get a local phone number. Make
Right.
sure you have, and that's the biggest thing. Make sure you have a local phone number. And that's one way to at least get to the interview. But if you have an out-of-state phone number, that automatically is going to weed you out for those employers that are looking for a permanent person.
Yeah. And but around a military base, it's kind of like good luck, because the majority is military. So the jobs and places that are there, even though they may not want to hire you, they have to hire you because they won't have anybody, because it's a base that is as big as Fort Bragg. You know, there's thousands and thousands of families there and troops. So, you know, it was easier for me to get a job there because when I started a job, the majority, even the managers, they were military, you know, so it was easier to get a job in a base that had a larger population, say, versus Huntsville. When I moved to Huntsville, it was not as easy to get a job, even though I had all this experience. It took me 3 years to land a job here, even
A
though I had
government job?
no banking, like a banking job. I'd never had any issues, and I worked and did everything in banking you can think of. And when
Oh,
I got here, I didn't get a job in banking. I went for an interview and I was like, there's no reason they shouldn't hire me unless they felt like I had too much experience and I would, you know, they would have to pay me more. So
right.
maybe they didn't want to pay. I don't know what it was, but I didn't get a job. So then the job that I did end up getting was not even in banking. It was through a temp service. And so I did through the temp service, and it was working for a water flow, a company that deals with the systems underground, like with
Okay.
water and all of that. And so I ended up doing that. And then it took me once I got out of that job, I landed another job, but it took me a while to get that one as well. And of course, that one was doing benefits and claims. So neither one of the jobs were jobs I applied for. They were just jobs that called me, and the jobs that I applied for, I'm like, what in the world? So
Yeah, that's depressing. That's
it
very
is
depressing.
depressing. Mhm.
In my situation, mine were overseas. So it's difficult to get as a spouse over. It's a little bit more difficult overseas because you have the veterans that bump you. So you have the order, they have the hierarchy, and the hierarchy even applies to the civilians and the civilian jobs. So over there, you have the veterans, they come first, then you have the military spouses, and then you have um, military families, and then you just have, I guess, local nationals or people, you know, that wouldn't have any affiliation with the military. And so it was difficult for me because
Oh my gosh.
there was a lot of veterans that
Mhm.
were now spouses. And so now they're getting, so now I'm second rated because you have the veterans that's gonna get the job first. So now we're coming down to the military spouse. So the issue that I found with getting positions as a military spouse is, first of all, most of us that are new military spouse, we don't know the system, so we get stuck. They get us. We don't know how to write our resumes correctly, so forth and so on. So what happens is when you get in the government system, it's on a grading level. You know, they say, okay, you're starting at a grade 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, so forth and so on. And a lot of us, we are qualified at a 7 or 9, but because we don't know how to write our resume, according to how we wrote our resume, we're only qualified for a 4, right? So you get this GS4, and then you get into the system and you start learning and realizing, I can do this. I could have done this when I was in junior high school.
Right.
I'm really qualified to do what the person 2 doors down is doing.
Mhm.
What we don't realize is now you've gotten stuck in this GS system, and there's no way for you to jump from a 4 to a 9 or a 7 where you are supposed to be.
Right.
Now you have to every year, hope and pray that you can find a way to get them to agree to give you a higher grade job.
That's yeah.
That's ridiculous. And
It is.
then, but this is the killer. This is the part that's unethical, and in my opinion,
Mhm.
is because they know that, and they know they get these spouses in those lower paying positions, and the treatment is horrible, the environment is toxic. And guess what? If you quit, you lose your preference.
That's true. You do. You do. Yeah. And that's a part of it. A part of it too, unfortunately. So yeah, the spousal preference is a whole nother thing. And of course, like on the outside of that, like because my ex had a Purple Heart, then you know that kind of will push you up in a sense, you know, as a military spouse, if you go to apply, you know, your ratings or whatever it
I
is,
didn't
you
know that.
pushed up if they have a Purple Heart or any kind of bronze, you know, so as a military
Oh,
spouse, your spousal preference will get pushed above everybody else's. So
okay.
that's an FYI for those, you know, for yourself or others who may, you know, need to know that. But tell us before we run out of town, what it would be your takeaway and your advice for military spouses, or those that aren't active duty anymore, what would be your takeaway or advice that you would give to them, things that they can do and put in place?
My advice would be to have a good support system. Well, I guess first focus on you.
Yes.
If you are religious, make sure you're grounded in your religion. If whatever faith that may
Right.
be,
You're gonna need
just make sure that you have something to mentally ground yourself, whether that's in faith, whether that is in therapy. I think that everyone needs therapy, especially military spouses.
I feel like that's true. Mhm.
Yeah, because the dynamics of your life is different than a normal civilian.
Right.
Learning how to transition in and out of those deployments, getting that spouse back into the groove of the household, things like that. But really, having a good foundation, having a awesome support system,
Yes.
whether you already have it or whether you have to build it.
Mhm.
A lot of people, oh, I don't have a support system. Create it.
Yes.
You
It's
can
important
create
to
a
have
support
that.
system. Yes. Go out and find the resources. Don't be afraid to be transparent, because when you're transparent, you will attract other transparent people that will help you grow. When we're too busy trying to be in our pride and not let people in our business or know where we struggle, you'll never get the help that
Struggle
you need.
in silence. Mhm.
Yeah, you struggle in silence, exactly. And then you draw that same energy. Those people are going through the same thing you're going through, but they don't want to talk about it either. So you don't really have that healthy outlet. Make sure you have a healthy outlet. Make sure that you're doing things for your body physically and mentally. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Put yourself first. If you're not happy, the house is not going to run smoothly. It's just not. So, do what's best for you, and that will trickle down
Yes.
to your family.
Right.
That would be my advice.
That's great advice, because if you don't take care of yourself, then the rest of the house suffers. And being a military spouse, it's so important to have that strong, firm foundation. So like you said, whatever it takes, whatever you have to do, to get that in place. There's no embarrassment or shame there then. So that's what we have to do.
Yes,
So
and if you're looking for employment, go to the employment centers. They are there to help you. They will give you some amazing tips and tricks to get you into the job that you have earned. Most of us have worked our way to a certain level, or we've earned a degree to get to that level, and to be put into a position that doesn't utilize you to your strengths can be very discouraging. So you're spending a third of your day in a position that doesn't suit where you are mentally.
right. Yeah. And that is so true. So I would also add, and it's like, maybe I think with military spouses too, and before we run out, military spouses too, a lot of them I know took, they started like home-based business because they had to move so often. And so that may not have been as popular now, but it sure is popular now, because it's now the season and time of an entrepreneur. And I think it is, in my opinion, one of the better. Even if you have a job, I think it's great to start something else on the side in the event that you have to move. While you're trying to get, in transition, you still have some income. You're still able to make, take care of your customers, and then, have an extra income coming in while in transition.
I agree. And if it's a product, you're actually building your clientele as you hop.
Yes.
You're adding more and more clientele as you hop. So even if you're providing a service, create some products to go to that service, so that when you do leave that area, that clientele is still looking for something from you.
Right. Because that is important. I mean, the product is definitely, you can take that with you wherever you go. So Miss Winston, tell our viewers how they can find you.
So I am on all the social media platforms.
She's great at it.
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn. I'm on Google. There are probably a few more I can't think of, but you can find me at Yo Win Royalty, or Yo Win Realty, or Yo Royal Fashion Vault. So again, you can reach me at Yo Win Royalty, on all the platforms. And from there, my contact information will be there and you can find me all over the place.
Yes, I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for coming on the show and just, giving our viewers a little peek into your life and also some amazing advice and wisdom that they can take away. And every week, every Tuesday, you can find us at Rethink TV, Reignite with Dr. Barb. The show airs every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. So until next time, thank you, and we will see you soon. Bye.